in this video, I'm going to show how to work sideways to make these strips. So in the last video, I showed you how to cast on extra stitches here. So we had an I-cord cast on. So that is already in my little tiny sample ready to go. So I've got my I-cord still continuing up, but I have, I just did 5 extra stitches here. So we'll do a little 5-stitch stripe going across. And I still have this I-cord edge, so these 2 knit stitches that I'm doing first, they're just kind of part of that I-cord edge that is continuing up my work. And now I'm getting to the 5 stitches that are involved in the stripe that's going to travel across. So as the stripe travels across, it's going to get knit, like use up the stitches that are down here. We're going to knit them together as we work each row of the stripe, but then we're also going to add stitches. So first we'll just knit across. So we're going to knit 1 less than the number you cast on, so 4 in this case. So knit 3, knit 4. And then I'm going to knit this stitch together with the live stitch through the back loop. So knit 2 together through the back loop. And then I'm going to do this like reverse slip stitch. So I'm going to take this stitch and slip it back onto the left needle, and we're going to do another knit 2 together through the back loop. And that's because I just like finished this row and did the first knit 2 together, and now I'm starting the next row, but I want it to look pretty on the right side, so that's why we're doing it from this side. And then again, we'll take that stitch and slip it back to the left needle. And at this point, you can just turn your work and purl back 4 stitches and then turn your work again. Or if you're feeling a little ambitious or you've done it before, you can knit backwards. So that's what I'm going to show right now. I'll do it with my left hand, holding the yarn in my left hand, and next I'll show you in the right hand. The interesting thing is that when you knit backwards, if you are normally a picker, if you normally get to pick your yarn out of your left hand, you actually become a thrower. So you'll see that now I'm going to have to throw my yarn to get it around the needle. And instead of, we're going to start building up stitches back on this left needle. So we're going to take the left needle tip and go into the back of the stitch on the right needle. And I have to throw my yarn around the left needle and then bring it through the stitch. Bring it through the stitch and let the stitch fall off of the right needle. So that was one. So go back through the back loop, throw your yarn around, bring it through the stitch and let your stitch slip off. So around, bring it through the stitch, let your stitch throw off. And we'll do one more, let your stitch slide off. So now I still have these 5 stitches that are my stripe. I've knit 2 rows and I have used up 2 stitches from down here because I knit 2 together and then I did through the back loop and then I did it again. So now I need to pick up 2 stitches along this edge so that I'll have live stitches waiting for me on the other side of this stripe that we're working. So what we're going to do is I'm calling it a knit the right leg 2 stitches below. So that's the stitch that is on the left needle. We're going to look, here's the stitch below, and the yarn's already coming out of there, so I couldn't really go into that again. But then I'm going to the second stitch below into this right leg of that stitch. So I'm going to take my needle from behind and then just place it up on my left needle and knit that stitch. There's a lot of different ways to do it. I'll try to show you some other ones too. And now that we've done something else, now we can go back to the stitch that's immediately below. So we're going to do a knit 1, knit into the right leg of the stitch that's 1 below the stitch on the needle. So again, I'll pick that up and put it on and then just knit that stitch. All right, and that completes 2 rows of the stripe. So we just continue that all the way across. But now I'm going to show you, if you hold your yarn in your right hand, it'll become interesting because you can become a picker. this way. So to start, we're just going to, simply knit across the stitches that we cast on. So here I had 5 stitches, so I'm going to knit 4 stitches. And then with that last stitch of the stripe, I'm going to knit 2 together through the back loop. Then take that stitch and slip it back onto the left needle and do another knit 1 together through the back loop. This is like we have already kind of started our row going back at this point. So do that stitch, slide it back to your left needle, and at this point you could turn your work and purl back, or you can give it a try working backwards or working the opposite direction. So same thing here. You're going to knit, take your left needle tip and put it into the back of the stitch that's on your right needle. It'll feel like the back. All right, so if you have, it's kind of hard for me to tension in my right hand, but if you've got some tension, you should be able to pick your yarn at this point. So you can dip down and grab that yarn and pull it through the stitch, and then let the stitch fly off. All right, so go into the back of the stitch on your right needle, dip down, grab the yarn and pull it through the stitch, and then let your stitch come off of the right needle. So take your left needle tip in through the back loop, dip down, grab the yarn, oops, off there. Okay, in through the back loop, grab the yarn and pull it through the stitch and let your stitch slide off. All right, so now I can see 4 stitches in my stripe, so I need 1 more. Dip down, grab the yarn and pull it back through the stitch and let the stitch slide off. All right, so now I'm back. You can see from my last time I had my 2 I-cord ones. I had the 2 that we picked up, and I just want to only work on these stitches in my stripe. But now I want to pick up 2 more stitches for the 2 rows that I just worked, so that I have those live stitches when we come back. So again, we're going into the stitch that is 2 stitches below the stitch that's on the left needle and into the right leg of it. So another way to do it, I'll show you, you can use your left needle tip to dip into that stitch and then knit it. Oops. And then knit it. And then we need to go into the stitch that's just 1 below. So I can also use my left needle tip to dip into that stitch, or you can use your right needle tip to kind of pick it up. But I knit that stitch. All right, and now we've completed our rows, and now you just work until you only have the 2 I-cord stitches left. And so I'm going to show you how to do that to finish and do the I-cord cast off on the other side in the next video.